This episode is sponsored by the Cornell S.E. Johnson College of Business. The Cornell Executive MBA Americas program is designed for goal achievers from any industry. The program works by advancing your career without interruption, by providing global perspectives and intimate classroom settings, and by challenging, informing, connecting, and propelling you. Achieve your goals with the Cornell Executive MBA Americas program on the weekend and close to home. Search Cornell EMBA Americas in my city today.
Welcome to the Ellevate podcast, conversations with women changing the face of business. Hi, everybody. It's Megan, welcoming you back to the Ellevate podcast, History Makers. I am so excited for today's guest. You're going to love her. I loved her. And if you are coming, which you should be, if you're in, the New York area, to next week's Mobilize Women Awards and Cocktail Reception, you will actually get to see her there because she is our first ever History Maker awardee. So without further ado, today I'm talking to Richelle Montoya, who is the first woman vice president of the Navajo Nation. Her story is so good. She talks just all about her journey, her experiences, her passions, how she wants to make a difference in the lives of so many people around her. It's just such a good interview, and I can't wait for you to hear it. So let's go ahead and get to that now. I am so excited to be here today with Richelle Montoya. She is the first woman vice president of the Navajo Nation.
Hello, everyone.
So it is so great to have you on, Richelle. I'm so excited to share your story. We always start out with the pretty big question. How did you get to be where you are, which is the first woman vice president of the Navajo Nation?
Sure, that is a big question lately. I am from the Navajo Nation. The Navajo Nation spans between three, almost 4 states now: the state of New Mexico, state of Arizona, state of Utah, and we do have land in the state of Colorado. And I come from the state of New Mexico. And I started working with a community service since I was a young girl. My late father and my late mother were both advocates for our communities, as far as working with the school boards, the local school boards. And then in our Navajo Nation, we are comprised of 110 chapters. And these chapters are kind of like maybe equivalent to townships. And these chapters have a president, a vice president, a secretary treasurer, and a council delegate. And our council delegate, it serves equivalent to a representative or a senator in the states. And my father was a member of our chapter as a chapter official. He used to be a vice president. He used to be a secretary. And we do have meetings once a month within these chapters. And since I was a little girl, I would participate with my family. I have an older sister and a younger brother, and we would help my dad and my mom with handing out coffee, handing out pastries, picking up trash. And then as I grew up, just being a part of the community and listening to the issues that were happening in our communities, and listening to the way our leadership advocated for us at the highest tribal level, which is the president and vice president's level. And so I always say that I guess you could say it was I grew up in it. I lived it almost every day. And when I became first a school board member in my local community, I helped advocate for our students, our children, for education. And then I joined a committee with our chapter called Community Land Use Plan Committee. And what that does is it plans out the use of the land in our community as far as infrastructure, economic development, any of the things that our community needs at that time. And then unfortunately, my dad had cancer, and it came a time for us to say goodbye to him. And he brought his kids together, myself, my older sister, my younger brothers, and he talked to us about continuing on the work that he started. And I decided I would run for president of my chapter. And I won. I started working with my chapter, started working with the Navajo Nation mother government, and started working with the council delegates, started working with the president, the vice president's office, their executive team, the division directors. I still felt that there was a disconnection between what we call local government at the chapter level and the mother government. And it just so happened to be around the time that people were starting to announce that they were going to run for president of the Navajo Nation. And the first individual that made his announcement was Dr. Nygren on April 4th. And I listened to his speech, I listened to what he had to say. And as president of my chapter, I initiated that I would invite every single candidate that was wanting to run for president to our chapter meetings to tell my community how they would help. And then, of course, answer any questions that my community members had. And we invited Dr. Nygren, and him and I spoke after the meeting. He asked for some information, what he could. He asked for clarification on questions that were given to him, and so one of the things that I always say is that when I heard Dr. Nygren speak in the past 40 something years, that was the very first time I ever heard um, the element of hope for myself, that this was the man that was going, this was the person that was going to be able to bring services back to our nation. And the issues that he spoke of, running water being taken out to this communities, electricity, broadband internet, better roads, that's basic human needs. And he spoke of that, and we were missing that, in my opinion. And um, I joined his campaign during the primary election. And when we hurdled the primary election and he made top two, he asked for applicants to be his vice presidential running mate. And it it was I again, I always say that I didn't hesitate to apply because I was a woman. I did hesitate because I didn't feel that I was experienced enough, but my heart is for my people, and that is one of the reasons I applied, was because I wanted to join Dr. Nygren and his vision and his goals for our Navajo people, because I felt like our goals and our thoughts aligned to the betterment for the betterment of our people. And I went through a process to become a candidate. I gave my resume, a letter of interest, and a 1-minute video on why I should be selected. I went through a 2-panel interview, and then Monday morning, the morning he named me as his vice presidential candidate was when he gave me a call and let me know that he selected me. And that's how I became vice president of the Navajo Nation, of course, after a hard fought general election.
That process is what I was really so curious about, because, you went from kind of meeting him one day and joining up with his campaign. And I was like, how did you get to be in the position of vice president? But that's so interesting that it's, as one would expect, such a long vetting process.
Yes, and he also mentioned a couple of times that after he saw and heard how I conducted my chapter meeting, he started telling his campaign team at the time that we need to keep an eye on Richelle. She might be our vice president. And then as we went through the primary election, we went through all these different rallies across the Navajo Nation, and he used to tell me, "Come up here, I want you to say something." So apparently I was going through an interview at the time. He was seeing what I would how I would talk, what I would say, and because the subjects are different in different parts of the Navajo Nation. So um, that was another process. Apparently, I went through. I thought I was just trying to get this candidate through.
Yeah, I love that.
Mhm,
Yeah, it seems like, you were concerned about, I love that you said you were never worried about the fact that, you were a woman, that
mhm.
it was always just qualifications. It seems like he didn't think your qualifications were lacking though.
No, he did not. He always let me know that my knowledge and experience at the grassroots level, at the local level, was plentiful, and I knew what needed to happen for our local government, our chapter government level. So I think that's what one of the things that pushed me into this position.
For sure. I want to talk about, you mentioned you're very passionate about youth education. I've read all about you taking on hair length rules in schools. And it seems like they've got your back as well, because I know that there was record youth turnout in your election. Do you want to talk about, what the youth of the Navajo Nation means to you, and why you're so passionate about it?
Sure, sure. Our I have my husband and I had 6 children. They range their age range is from about 35 down to 20, our youngest. And we're a blended family. My husband has 3 biological children, and I have 3 biological children, both um, 2 boys and a girl, both of us. And our girls are the ones that link our families together because my oldest was born in November and his youngest daughter is born in January. And they're both the same age. And so we do our very best when we started raising our blended family to not have any gender roles. Our daughters can change the oil and change tires. Our sons can go in the kitchen and make dough to make tortillas or peel potatoes to help make dinner, wash dishes, do laundry. There's all these different things that all of our kiddos can manage, and I see that across Navajo Nation. We have parents that are making sure that there are no gender specific duties anymore within our families. And I feel that our children, our youth have picked that up and acknowledged that both roles are equally important, that everybody can do what the other gender can do. There are certain things in our tradition and our cultures that are specific to male and female, but they know that, we teach that, and we honor that. And I feel that the youth are wanting to continue that into the next generations to come. And they see that in Dr. Nygren and I, and of course, our First Lady and our second gentleman, and how we can conduct our families and how now we conduct business with on Navajo Nation. One of the things that we mentioned during the campaign was that in our Navajo culture, our Diné culture, we have to have an element of a female and a male in anything and everything that we do, from ceremony to our homes to decision making. And for myself, that was one of my opinions, was that that was what was lacking in our Navajo government, was we didn't have that traditional aspect in our Navajo government. And I really feel that our youth saw that, and when they did see that there would be a male perspective and a female perspective, they listened to it and they acknowledged it and they respected it. And um, just the 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 issues that are coming out for them, because we don't all live on the Navajo Nation anymore. Having that balance helps them when they're living in Albuquerque, New Mexico, Phoenix, Arizona, Denver, Colorado, wherever it is that their parents are living currently to support their families and work. It really helps them stay balanced out there when we're outside of our sacred mountains, that our tradition tells us that protects us when we are within those mountains. Um, you mentioned that I advocate a lot for my first it was my two sons, my biological sons. They had very long hair, and it went past their waistline. And the reason why we have very long hair is because it represents our education. It represents our thoughts, and we put it together. We bind it in a Navajo traditional bun so that our thoughts are collected. And when my husband was promoted at work and we were taken down to Artesia, New Mexico, which is still within the state of New Mexico where we resided, um, we got down there and they showed us the rules in their school policies that said that a young man's hair will not touch the collar of their shirt. So we went straight to the school board at a school board meeting and let them know this is who we are. This is why our sons have their hair this way. And I'm sorry, but we are not going to be able to participate in the policy that you have. And of course, they were very understanding, and they let everybody, all the schools know that this is what was happening, and we're here, we're part of the community now. And like I said, it was a good experience, the communication we had. Unfortunately, our grandson, who goes to school in Midland, Texas, did not experience a positive outcome, or a positive conversation, I should say. Um, their mom, my daughter-in-law, and my son had to give us a call and ask us what do we do, because they suspended our grandson from school for a couple of days because he wouldn't comply with the policy. And so I had to start calling the school districts down there and let them know this is who we are, this is who my grandson is. And they still said, well, you're in our school district now, you need to be respectful to our policies. And so we had to get our traditional leadership involved from our Navajo Nation to have them basically say, this is what's going on. And fortunately, they've complied with our traditional ways, and my grandson still has long hair to this day. And they made an exception for him because of our traditional ways. And I can just imagine how many other Indian Native American families out there are dealing with this, and probably some of them just comply. And I mean, I've read maybe a couple of stories about a young boy whose hair was cut at school without the parents' permission. And so that's what I am. That's who I am with the Navajo Nation. In my inaugural speech, I said in Navajo that you are all my children. I am here to protect you. I do not want anybody speaking badly, thinking badly, treating my children badly. So that's part of my job now, is to be that advocate for our Navajo people, Navajo citizens that live outside of the Navajo Nation's reservation borders.
That's absolutely wonderful. And I, as somebody who, I was born in Maryland, but I grew up in Texas, and I've recently moved back to Texas. I wish I could say it was a surprise that they ran into that issue, but there are definitely very backwards attitudes here. But I am really glad that the school district eventually came around and made an exception.
Yes.
So, one of the things that has come up when I've talked to other history makers is kind of they realize at different points that they're going to make history. Sometimes they've set out and they said, "Oh, I know I'm going to be the first." Sometimes they don't realize it until, they're kind of told that. How early on did you realize that you were going to potentially be the first woman vice president of the Navajo Nation?
Oh gosh, I sometimes I still can't believe that it happened. um, I would probably say the night of the general election, November 2nd, President Nygren and I, we went across the Navajo Nation. Like I said, we have 110 chapters, and we did our best to stop at almost all the chapters that day. And for myself, I was assigned to the New Mexico chapters, and we started our tour. I guess you could call it, at 5 o'clock in the morning, and hit our first chapters. Um, I voted at my home community chapter. I was with my sister, two of my sisters. They were taking care of me that day, and we stopped at, I believe, 27 chapters to say hello to the voters, the constituents, um, spoke to our campaign individuals that were there at the chapter houses. And then within my family, we had other individuals that were assigned at different chapters. But as I went through the day, um, just, I'm sorry, I get kind of emotional here, but um, some young women that were out there that were standing in line to vote, they were just so excited. And they said they were there with their grandmothers and their aunties, and they were saying that they were told, you need to come pick me up so we can go vote our first female into this office. And it was real. It was real then. Before, as I would campaign throughout the Navajo Nation, I was campaigning as a person, not the possibility of being the first female. And so that day that I was going throughout the chapters on election day is when I really felt that this is a huge possibility that 8 o'clock tonight would tell the Navajo Nation if they would have the first female in office. And so we went through the day. We ended our day in Window Rock, which is our Navajo Nation capital. And I got there. I was listening to the radio because the results were coming in, and we have our local Navajo station, KTNN, that is on site at the fairgrounds because both camps are there in different areas. And they're there getting the results from the chapters, and telling the Navajo Nation what the vote count is at that point. And as we were going into Window Rock, I think it was like maybe the third chapter votes came in, and the Nez Abeta team went up, like, I'm saying, maybe like 30 votes. And then we stopped for fuel and did some other things, and we went to the headquarters. And by the time we got to the headquarters, uh, a few more chapter results came in, and Nigrin Montoya was up ahead again. And I made it into the headquarters, and President Nigrin also got there about the same time I did. And the rest of the evening we were ahead all the way until KTNN basically called it that the Niagara Montoya would be the new administration for the Navajo Nation. And you still have that feeling of, okay, there's still 12 chapters left, there's enough votes for them to take over if they could. But when we were at about close to 4,000 votes, that is when I realized we made history. Our people made history.
I can't imagine what that feeling must be like. And I no worries about getting emotional. This is a very real podcast. What would be your advice for anyone looking to follow in your footsteps if it's a young woman in the Navajo Nation who also wants to get involved with her community?
Mhm. Well, first of all, what the first thing that I ask of every Navajo citizen is to get involved with your local chapter government. That is the first step in finding out how to work with our Navajo Nation and how to fight for your people, and the different avenues that can come from that. And when you establish yourself at that point, in my opinion, you gain this heart for your people. You have this heart for your people, and as you continue on your path, just like a mom is what I say, you take care of everybody else except you. But our holy creator takes care of you and your well-being while you're doing this. So learn to be there for your people, learn to fight for your people, and keep that at the forefront of your mind. And remember to take care of yourself holistically, mind, body, and spirit, because the people you're fighting for need you to be in a good place to continue that fight. So learn to be that way. And I'm saying to be there for your people because sometimes the Navajo Nation government, I feel, disconnected from their people. And it was starting to be a fight between the people and the Navajo Nation government. But when we keep our people at the forefront of our minds, there won't be that disconnect anymore. And so learn to be that, learn to be an advocate, learn to be strong, learn the laws of the Navajo Nation, learn the policies and procedures of your government, whether it's the Navajo Nation, the Cherokee Nation, the pueblos of the state of New Mexico. Learn those policies and procedures because once you have that education in your mind, you'll know how to help your people.
That is beautiful. I have just one more question for you today,
Mhm.
and it's that I know that those who make history stand on the shoulders of others who've made history in the past. So I always like to finish out our History Makers podcasts by asking, who is a history maker who inspired you?
Oh gosh. I reflect on three individuals. One is from my home indigenous nation, which is the Honorable Annie Dodge Wanika. She was the second female council delegate in our history. And the reason I look up to her and her words is because she helped her people through the era of tuberculosis. She helped our people by demanding that the United States government, yes, you've helped our Navajo Nation establish our government, establish different ways of conducting government. But basically, she said, we got this from here. Stop coming to our meetings, stop telling us what to do. And that to me is basically what a Navajo woman does. Say, hey, we got this. We can do this from here. And the other individual is, of course, the leadership of Wilma Mankiller. Her humbleness, her love for her people, her love for doing what's right. One of the quotes that she mentions is, "I'm just a woman. I'm just a person that was put in this path to lead, and that's what I'm doing." And the last individual that I reflect upon is Secretary Deb Haaland. My favorite quote of hers is, "I will leave the ladder down." Her strength in being in the position she's in, the strength she showed when she was, what is the term, when she went before the confirmation hearing, was
Yes.
amazing. I mean, the answers she gave, the her not positiveness, but the strength she showed as she got all these questions and she fought in a balanced way to where she didn't get angry, she didn't get offended. She just answered the questions that were given to her in a good way to hurdle that part of her confirmation. And I really admire these three women in that way. And the last but not least person that I look up to, of course, is my mom. My mom, my dad divorced my mom when I was 8 years old. She married my dad when she was 14. So she never finished school, but she took care of us. And her traditional knowledge is what I hold today and what makes me the person that I am. And so to me, in our community, that was the very first time a divorce happened. And so my mom was basically the first single parent in the community. And it's not a positive history making way, but the way she navigated through it um, showed the rest of our community that it is possible to move on, even if a relationship gets broken the way it did, and to take care of your kids, to bring them up in life, and to continue to, of course, have a positive relationship with our father, even though she didn't have a positive relationship with my dad.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think it's such a good reminder that history can be made on scales that are both big and, I hesitate to say small. I don't think there's any small history makers, but that history can be made by anyone at any time.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Well, as much as I wish I could talk to you more, we are actually a little bit over time.
Okay.
So I want to thank you so much for coming on today and for talking so openly and so generously about your story and everything, your entire journey. So on behalf of the entire Ellevate podcast, thank you so much.
Just thank you for the time and the opportunity. I appreciate that. You guys are doing good things. I've listened to some of your stuff. Amazing. There's amazing women out there.
Yes. Oh my goodness. So many and so many more to highlight.
Yes.
We can never stop. Ellevate Network drives real results for ambitious women trying to break through the glass ceiling and achieve success in their careers. We offer a platform full of resources and opportunities for growth, all designed to help you unlock your potential. With Ellevate support, you can take the first step toward achieving your professional goals. With a supportive community and tangible resources at your fingertips, you're only one step away from reaching your fullest potential. Join us today and take advantage of our 30-day free trial to start building the career of your dreams. Thanks so much for listening to the Ellevate podcast. If you like what you hear, you can subscribe, give us 5 stars, and share your review. You can learn all about Ellevate membership and all the great things that Ellevate Network is doing at our website, www.ellevatenetwork.com. That's ELLEVATE network.com. And special thanks to our producer, Catherine Heller. She rocks. Thanks so much, and join us next week.